Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that my friend Kansas Senator Grassley was talking about H.R. 4, but I would note to him we're here to discuss my bill, S4, which has dramatic changes from the bill he was talking about. It's the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I've championed this for years. The Voting Rights Advancement Act, as you've noted, Mr. Chairman, has been bipartisan for many years, just like all the efforts to restore the Voting Rights Act before it. I hope it continues to get bipartisan support as it has always had. Like the evolving decisions from the court that impact the Voting Rights Act, well, then this legislation also must evolve to address emerging concerns. It may be surprising to some when they hear the rhetoric to learn that the Voting Rights Act improving and strengthening and reauthorizing it has been an overwhelming bipartisan effort for decades. We seem to be in an era of toxic partisanship, and I hope that will not obscure what has for decades united us across party lines. Republican and Democratic members of this committee voted in support of reauthorizing the Voting Rights Act in 2006. In fact, it wasn't long ago. We stood side by side to unanimously approve the 2006 reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. We even stood together with the House and Senate members, Republicans and Democrats alike, on the steps of the Capitol. And you have about as broad a spectrum of ideologies among the Republicans and Democrats in that picture as you can imagine. So I wonder what's changed in such a short time. The belief that protecting our right to vote is bigger than party or politics, that's not novel or new. And in my state of Vermont, we fight to make sure everybody has a chance to vote. It's a belief that a system of self-government, a government of, by, and for the people, is one that is worth preserving for generations to come. And that's why the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is here. It seeks to ensure that Americans of all parties, all races, all backgrounds, they have the right to vote protected. It's not, nor has it ever been, an effort to empower one party over the other. You know, we insist on all people being able to vote in Vermont. It's not for one party or the other. In the last election, we elected a Republican governor, we elected a Democrat lieutenant governor. It's not about a federal takeover of elections. It's not about empowering fraudulent voting. It's about empowering citizens to fulfill their constitutional duty and exercise their legal right to vote. And we as elected representatives of the people, I'd be able to agree that that's a right worth protecting. So the legislation I introduced yesterday is the culmination of many months of negotiation, both here in the Senate and the House, and consultation with the Department of Justice. And I couldn't help but think that's the sort of process Congressman Lewis would have embraced. The Supreme Court's Shelby County decision decreed that Congress has to build a fulsome record of current voting conditions and then premise any legislation restoring the Voting Rights Act on that record. Well, we've methodically, for years, done just that. So what does that record show? It demonstrates action from Congress is needed and demanded to defend against efforts to restrict the right to vote in states across the country. The House answered that call. They passed a bold version of the John Lewis VRA this summer. We did our part by introducing a Senate version that stayed true to the goals of the House-passed legislation and incorporated input we've received through ongoing bipartisan conversation. So this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It never has been, not in all my years here in the Senate. And I'll continue working in good faith with senators of both parties to find common ground. Remember, we have one thing that goes beyond Democrats or Republicans, and that's protecting our precious right to vote. That's what gives democracy its name. That's more important than any party. Every one of us should recognize the sacrifices of people like our friend and hero, John Lewis. The question is, are we willing to live up to his example, put aside our differences, and do what's right for democracy? I know we can. The question is, do we have the will to try? I hope we do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Leahy.